Hello, 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 everyone from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello from Australia. Hello from everywhere. Look, if you're new to Space for Change, I'd love to introduce you and let you know what we've got in store for tonight. So please, if you haven't already, jump in the chat. Let me know where you're dialing in from, or where you're zooming in from. So currently I am zooming in from New Jersey, USA. Nice to see you. I see people from Perth, Denver, Brisbane. Oh my goodness, New Zealand. Yep, more Brisbane, more New Zealand. Gotta love New Zealand. Sunny Melbourne. Oh, I wish it was sunny over here, guys. I really, really do. Oh, guys, it's so good to see you. Oh, we've got our friends from the UK as well. Hi, welcome. Look, if you're new to Space for Change, welcome to our global community. This is truly a space where we're looking to build knowledge as a community and come to you and share that and engage you in that discussion as well. Guys, you have to know that these sessions are built and based on what you tell us you want to hear. So stay tuned to the very end because you're going to want to understand what goodies we have in store for you, but also how you can get involved in helping to understand what you want to hear from us next. So welcome, welcome. I can still see some people coming in. Rainy Sydney, rainy New York as well, hey? Rainy New York, all right. So we have an incredible topic today. And guys, this is what you voted for. This is what our LinkedIn group voted for. And Andrew has pulled together this special topic. So today our topic is going to be AI versus human intelligence. There's a lot of buzz around this. There's a lot of appetite to hear what this is all about. And today we've got our wonderful Andrew Buto. We've got the rest of the Earth to Mars team as well online. Just give us a big wave. There we go. Hi, guys. And we've got our guest speaker, Rob Scott. Now, we have heard from Rob before, and we just love him, cannot get enough of him. So we're so excited to hear from you, Rob. And the question we're asking is it game over for humans leading change? Guys, we really want to know. We really want to know. So stay engaged, stay involved. Throughout the session, feel free to jump into the chat, write comments, say, yes, preach. Yes, I love that. I don't agree with that. We love people who don't agree as well, because this is about knowledge building as a community, right? We don't always have all the answers. Additionally, we love praise. Use those emojis. And as I said before, stay tuned to the very end. We've got some goodies for you. Seriously, we want to thank you. All the proceeds of today's webinar are going to the Relief for Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis. It's definitely something we hold very close to our hearts, and we just appreciate you for jumping on board and supporting the cause and also supporting us. So take it away, Andrew.
Wow, thanks, Christina. Thanks for holding the energy in New York for us, as always. And again, thrilled for another year of our monthly Space for Change gatherings. If you also do want to know when our next one is and keep abreast of our monthly-ish gatherings, join our LinkedIn group at Space for Change on LinkedIn. If you just Google us, not Google us, LinkedIn search us, we're there. And obviously we'll be posting the video. But I want to jump straight into this amazing topic. So obviously with ChatGPT, a lot of attention has now gone back to what's happening with development of AI. And the question on everyone's mind here is, well, how does this compete with human intelligence, and in particular, neurodiversity? And I'm really excited because we've got Natalie Phillips-Mason. Give us a wave, Nat. Natalie does a lot in terms of neuro inclusion. So I'm really happy she's here. And what we realized is when it comes to neuroatypicals or neurominorities, this is a whole other topic that we can open. So we're hoping to have Natalie at our next one, because I know that's really an interesting topic. But when we talk about human intelligence, we're really sort of thinking about all our differences and all our ideation capability. And is AI able to really replace us now that it's getting better at language and communication, which often allows us to collaborate, to co-create, and to do the good things we do in change? So please bear with me. I'm a little bit of a geek, and I'm an 80s baby. But when I saw this topic, especially the versus part, I know some people had a bit of a challenge with it, but so did I, because it kind of reminded me of this little game that we used to play back in the day called Mortal Kombat. Who here remembers Mortal Kombat? Put your hand up. There we go. Most of us do it. So I see some virtual hands going up in the group. So if you bear with me, why don't we have a couple of rounds of Mortal Kombat and hear from you, our community, where your thoughts are. So without further ado, round one.
Round one, fight!
Right, so the question I'd like to pose to the group is, and please grab your phones. Otherwise, if you're on a desktop, you can always go to ahaslides.com/AI-VSHI, but use the QR code right up there on the screen, scan it. I know most of you know how to do this after what we've been through the last couple of years. And if you don't, where have you been? But just use the link there. So jump in there. We've already got 6-8 people in there. And let us know, with the recent ChatGPT development in AI, how disruptive is this for the way we currently lead change, transformation, communication, project management? I want to hear from you. What are the thoughts? Wow, this is kind of spread out. I think we've got a lot of people at the moment leaning towards a sensible, somewhat disruptive. We've got 3 people thinking it's extremely disruptive. So definitely want to hear your views in the chat. Highly disruptive. And if you're saying it's not disruptive at all, I kind of like that confidence there, because there's some opportunities there as well to unpack and explore. Wonderful. Keep it votes coming in. Great. So it's looking like most people here, and this is very consistent with a lot of the polls we put in our Space for Change group, where I think over 70 or 75% of us said that, hey, it's somewhat disruptive. And it was interesting. A lot of people who said it was extreme had a background in design, so almost like visual design, digital design. And I know that space is also being disrupted quite a lot. Wonderful. I'm just going to let Claire Edwards in. Ready for round 2? Let's do this.
Round 2, fight!
All right, round 2 of Mortal Kombat. Again, you can stay on your existing track, or you can use the QR code. Now, in the context of human intelligence, what does the term neurodiversity mean for you? Now, we've heard the term neuro. Is it that all brains are wired differently? Is it that only specific brains are wired differently? Sort of like if you've got ADHD, for example, you have a very specific brain. Is it both, or is it neither? Really keen to know where you stand on this. So use the QR code. Wonderful. So we've had, looks like 24 votes, and the vast majority agree. And this is the traditional, when this word was coined, it was actually an Australian psychiatrist or psychologist, and she coined the word neurodiversity. And what I love about this word is it's actually a biological survival mechanism. And because we are all so different, when we collaborate and put all our different opinions together, it allows us to face some of the worst things this universe and this planet can throw at us. And we've seen it. We're sending rockets to Mars. We're doing amazing things in the sustainability and ESG space. So this is the thing, our differences. We need to start looking at our brains as being different. And if we embrace that in change and get more perspectives than just your executive or just your steering committee, magical things can happen. So I'm really glad that we understand it's much broader. And then when it comes to the specifics, that is what we call neuroatypicals, neurominorities, or neurodistinct, as Natalie has said. So I reckon that's something we can unpack at a future session. All right, ready for the final round of Mortal Kombat.
Finish him!
Oh, I love that game so much. All right, so from this community, what do humans have that give us the upper hand over artificial intelligence, especially what we do in terms of leading people, projects, change, transformation? What do we have that gives us the upper hand? What can AI not do? A brain, cool. That's a great thing. It's lots of connections, but it's also vulnerable, isn't it? We have emotions, absolutely. And those can guide us and give us feedback. Oh, I love that. We can express compassion at this point. We can assess emotion and respond a lot quicker than a machine can. Intuition, that's a powerful one. There's something, I remember reading Malcolm Gladwell a long time ago in a book called Blink. And that book said that if you've got your 40,000 expert hours, your gut and your intuition is probably 99% more accurate than any computer, because your gut can pick these things up faster. Understanding body language, fantastic. Creativity, thank you. And that's something we need to do a lot more in change in terms of harnessing that. Dealing with uncertainty, love it. Ability to collaborate, that's a big one for us. And I absolutely agree there. We've got experience, a human experience. I don't think AI would be able to, feel certain beautiful experiences like love maybe, or, the fear of going into a new career, for example. Would it ever be able to understand those juicy experiences? Flights of fancy. Oh, that's a great one. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so we've got a beautiful little word cloud there happening. I don't want to take up any more time because I cannot wait for our next speaker and friend of Space for Change. But before we do that, I think we need to get rid of the verses in this topic. Who agrees with that? Raise your hand, give me a nod. Wonderful. Tati's giving me a thumbs up. And the reason for that is what we've seen at Earth to Mars is when we start embracing neurodivergence and neurodiversity, what we really mean there is using design thinking, facilitating, and really getting broader ideas instead of just listening to the highest levels of the corporate hierarchy. And what we find is that is probably the biggest edge we have over IT right now is when humans come together, we can inspire each other. We can co-create change. We can do some incredible things that actually blow people's minds. But what we have found is when we work symbiotically with AI, for example, using collaborative technology, using AHA slides like we just did, gaining ideation, we can actually start including people in the conversation that previously didn't have a voice. And what I mean by that is we're going to move, and what I'm seeing at Earth to Mars is with a lot of our clients, we're going to move away from a hierarchy of people into a hierarchy of ideas when it comes to transformation, because things are getting way more uncertain, way more complex, way more scary for business. And really, we can't rely on the perspectives of a few. What it also does is it allows us to look at a huge amount of data and include people in that conversation by way of other channels like technology. I mean, I'm sort of thinking of the person that maybe doesn't speak up in meetings, maybe isn't really well liked. With using technology, we can remove the bias. So they can still give their ideas, they can check their thinking with ChatGPT, but we get a much richer thing. And the more we work together with human potential and linking in neurodiversity, linking in collaborative technology, we can really do amazing things in the change space in terms of broader ideation. So with that, we welcome Rob Scott. Rob has been one of my friends, mentors, colleagues, bosses, all of the above over the last decade. And what I love about Rob is, aside from being deeply entrenched in the people technology space, he's one of the most curious people I know. And he's one of those true continuous learners. Whenever there's something new come out, Rob's the first one in there talking about it, playing with it, sharing with his team, having robust conversations. But really why we've invited Rob to this is he's really keen on the link between behavior and how we use technology. And often we split that in business, in life, in our mindsets. But the reality is humans have always had this very tight relationship with technology. And Rob's here to share in that. So welcome aboard, Rob. I'm going to hand the floor over to you and looking forward to your share.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. And let me get my screen up quickly and then I'll get going. You need to unshare and then, yep. All right. Well, good. Well, thank you so much for the invite. And, I was getting a bit worried. I joined this group and it was 2 years ago and I thought, gosh, 2 years and they haven't invited me back. And then thank goodness a couple of a week or so ago, Andrew said, come along and have a chat. But what a fantastic topic. And, you know, I think there's very few people in the world that today have not heard about ChatGPT, for example. And you think, wow, what is it that caused such a great uproar in society? And why did it cause that? And, you know, here we've got a tool that's actually surpassed other products like TikTok to reach the first 100 million users in such a short period of time. That doesn't happen unless there's a real wave of interest, a wave of excitement, a wave of fear to some extent happening around these particular products. So I want to have a chat to you about this. And as Andrew said in his introduction, I come from I don't want to say it's unique anymore, but I come from a psychology and a technology background, and those two things really are part of our lives now and part of our lives in the future. And for many people who are either sitting just in the psychology side or just in the technology side or one of those things, are needing a real understanding of how to bridge that, because the combination of those two things are so critical to how we operate going forward. And, you know, for a lot of you who are in the change space, this is a critical moment. And in fact, I think, you know, this latest sort of hype in terms of ChatGPT is really an interesting one for a lot of us, because we can see forward how it may impact the type of work that we do. So I'm going to spend the next sort of 40 odd minutes with you. Thanks for some of the great questions that have come in from you. I've tried to incorporate a lot of them into this talk. And, you know, what I would really encourage you to do is to reach out to Andrew, reach out to myself if you want to discuss something more, because obviously we don't have enough time to deep dive into all of these things today. But hopefully I've touched on a number of them for you. I'm also going to be asking a number of questions, some spot surveys, using a different tool but works exactly the same concept. And, you know, this is the way of life now. You know, we can't just rely on knowing one piece of technology or one approach or one tool. The diversity is so important to our survival in many respects. Okay, so let's have a look at what we're going to chat about. I want to start off with a reminder, and that's going to talk to some of the historics around artificial intelligence and some of the human behavior that we've seen in that space, because it's important that we know where we're coming from with this and why we've reacted and behaved in certain ways. I want to touch on the concept of superintelligence. I then want to look at this concept of mathematizing words. That's going to sound a bit odd, but I'll get to that point. I think this will be a really interesting topic for all of you in the change space. And then I want to sort of dive a little bit deeper into AI and what that means really from a change management perspective. So very interested to hear your views along the way. And so please drop notes, drop questions if you've got, and we'll try and answer them sometime during the session. Okay, let's kick off with a question. And this is similar to the tool that you just used. I don't have the QR code, but if you go to www.menti.com and you use the code 15581102, you'll see the question coming up. And here's the question. How comfortable are you with using artificial intelligence in your daily life? And that doesn't necessarily mean GPT. It could be any AI tool that you've used. What is it that where's your comfort zone with this? I'll give you a couple of seconds to log in and answer that question. Okay, and as they're coming in, what we're starting to see is what I would suspect, that we're going to get a complete range of scores coming in. And that's really depicts what society feels at the moment. We've got people who are on one extreme completely happy with AI. They use it all the time. They dive into it. They experience it. They use it. They find good uses for it. On the other side, we've got a lot of people who are perhaps shy of using the technology, understanding what it means, and they're looking a bit deeper and they're going, wow, this could actually be problematic for me as an individual, for society as a whole. And so, you know, it's interesting to see this dynamic. And I think from a change management perspective, here's lesson number one. Never make an assumption that you've got an audience that are thinking in a similar way with respect to artificial intelligence. It's not like that at all. It's very different. And in many respects, you're going to have to deal with these kind of levels of resistance or levels of optimism in very, unique ways to make sure that you can help people bypass this fear or this necessity to overcompensate using AI tools. So there we've got fairly sort of even spread along a lot of things coming through, which is interesting. Notably, there's only one person that says I'm very uncomfortable, and never underestimate the impact that uncomfortableness has on people, because I'm going to show you in a moment a personal incident that happened with me a number of years ago that really managed to, or forced me into a particular style of discussing AI and using AI, which I think will be most useful. Okay, I'm going to move on just in the interest of time. Thank you for that. And we've got a couple of other questions that will come up later as well. All right, so let's start off with the reminder. And what I really want to talk to you here about is that as human beings, we've come a long way since, the 1500s, almost, when technology started influencing who we are as human beings. And for those of you who've been sort of exploring ChatGPT, you would have perhaps come across a guy by the name of Joseph Weizenbaum. And he was actually the father of the very first chatbot called Eliza. But he made this very interesting statement. He said, what I had not realized is that by extremely short exposure to relatively simple computer programming, this could induce powerful delusional thinking in quite normal people. So you and I have a strong reaction to technology that we think is going to be operating just like us. And so this program that he developed, which was really a therapist tool that was really mirroring patient statements, he called it Eliza. And today, this effect of anthropomization of technology is known as the Eliza effect. And it came all the way back from there. So this was one of the very first cases where a piece of technology caused a lot of fear, not just among professional people at that time, but other people that were, exposed to that. They felt uncertain that a piece of technology could behave like a human being. And, we don't have to look too far either in terms of modern times. I mean, you might have remembered, it might have been a year or 2 years ago, I can't remember, a guy by the name of Blake Lemoine. He worked for Google, and he made this big noise on social media that he believed one of Google's chatbots called Lambda had become sentient. In other words, it was thinking and behaving and showed emotion just like a human being. And, Andrew opened up with a comment around that. Is AI at that point of being able to express emotion? No, not true emotion. Will it get there? Yes, to some extent, but will it ever become the same as a human? Unlikely in our lifetime. So there's a lot of technology that can certainly mimic human behavior, and that's what creates the fear. So this was back in the 1960s. Let me relay a story, and I can't remember if Andrew and I were still working together at the time, but around about 2014, there was this artificial intelligence tool called Amy, and Amy came from a company called X.AI. And really what she did was you copied her in as a CC onto your email, and then she managed the communication between the two people trying to set up a meeting. She was impeccable. Her writing skills were impeccable. And unless you had a good look at her email address, you would not necessarily know that she was an artificial intelligence tool. This program, or this exercise, I ran for about 3 months, and I was really trying to sort of understand how people responded. And at the end of about a 3-month period, what I started to notice is that as people got to understand that Amy was in fact a robot, people fell into two baskets fundamentally. The one was they were either really sort of surprised and wowed and going, oh my gosh, I'd love to hear more about this. The other group fell into the angry mode, and it was this fear of the unknown. And I ended up having to stop the project because people became derogatory towards Amy, even though she was a machine. It was, oh, dumb blonde kind of statements. And it was, wow, this is really interesting human behavior that we've seen coming through. And so it was the first time in my life, back in 2014, that I realized you need to acknowledge AI to others when you're using it. Don't hide it. As soon as you hide it, you run the risk of creating a behavior that you don't want to see, and moving back from that is really difficult. I'm going to make another statement that I really want you to think about carefully. Don't become a slave owner don't build a slave owner mentality around artificial intelligence. It's one of the things that are going to come back and bite us if we do. And I don't mean it's going to be the machines fighting back and taking over. What will happen, though, is that AI is mimicking and learning from us. That's how it learns. It learns from our text. It learns from our behaviors. And so if we take on a slave ownership mentality where we think these tools are just going to do things for us, and we show no compassion towards the AI tools, we are going to sort of inherently influence how AI learns from us moving to the future. And that's going to have a broader impact for us on humanity. So I know that's a pretty wild statement, and some people have sort of challenged me on that. But it's important that, you know, if we look back in history in terms of slavery, it took decades and decades and decades to unfold that. And we're still experiencing, you know, the problems of slavery today. So let's not move into that same mode where we use AI tools in a way that we think they are slaves. And it's a mental thing as opposed to necessarily the actual treatment, but it might be the way that we say things, the way that we use them, the abuse of these tools. That behavior is ultimately going to be learned by these artificial intelligent tools moving forward. Okay, so that hopefully has woken you up a little bit. Just in terms of ChatGPT, by the way, I thought, isn't this interesting? If you really look at its name, generative pre-trained transformer. I know Andrew will be laughing or thinking, oh, it's a transformer. And it is in many respects, you know, it's creating transformation. But I did think, wow, isn't that another anthropomorphization of a word? You know, that's in people's minds, this is going to become a real artificial robot that we're dealing with. Okay, and a couple of last things. So we all know about the Luddites. We've heard all about them. We understand why it happened back in the 15th century, you know, where they just did not want to see this technology taking over the manual labor. And so this group of people that formed together a secret society called the Luddites, and they went around and destroyed all the machines. I think the real message here for everybody is that new technology does create fear. And it's fear that is going to cause people to respond in a particular way if they feel threatened. And as a change person, you've got to be very alert to how people are feeling with respect to technologies that you introduce to them, because they can feel fear from that, fear of losing their job, fear of not understanding, fear of exposure, whatever that might be. And so make sure that you understand how you're going to deal with that moving forward. Because as I've said, that so many times we are not great at learning from the past, and we'll continue to forget. Don't assume that people have gone through technology change and they will apply that same thinking moving forward. And we've got to rethink that. And so these false alarms that we are going to have are going to continue to have. And isn't it crazy? If you think about it, the news item that caught us most in the beginning of 2003 was all about ChatGPT. And yet what it should be is that unemployment has been the lowest in the last 30 to 50 years. But it's funny that, you know, we've created such a hype, you know, with this piece of software, because it has such an influence, or we can see the potential influence that it has on our life. And Andrew's touched on some of the, you know, the topics that I think this particular product will be able to sort of help with. But let's not misunderstand ChatGPT. It's still a piece of technology that's deeply flawed. And it does give us a really positive glimpse of what our future is going to hold with it. But don't get me wrong, these have got fantastic potential. We think about, you know, what it can do for neurodiverse spectrums of people in many things. And I guess many of you have tried it out and you found wonderful things of what you can do with it. But there's still bias in there. There's still the broader bias. It does not fully understand the neurodiverse spectrum in terms of appropriate behaviors all the time. But it's going to grow and it's going to develop in that space. And, you know, the last thing I'll leave you with as a positive note in this section is that don't forget that every time there's been a great technology adjustment in our society, we've created more jobs, not less jobs. Yes, we've lost certain jobs, but we've always created more. And this graphic by Scott Galloway is a great reminder, just back to the early 50s or mid 50s, that we've continually grown. So let's not create fear around technology. There's no need to be that. We need to be optimistic. What we don't know, of course, is what are these jobs that are going to come out of this next technology wave. And I've got a really great idea that I'll chat to you towards the end in terms of the change that I think you need to make in order to make sure that we can grow as change people and grow as people who are embracing technology with everything that we do. Okay, let's get on to the next question. So here it is. And you should jump onto the same screen. You don't have to sort of put in the number again if you're already in there. And here's the question. By what percentage do you think your job will change in the next 3 years because of technology advancement? So this should be interesting. What percentage do you think your job will change? All right, so again, some interesting numbers in here. And we've got the majority sort of sitting in a fairly low percentage. So about 25%, of my job is going to change, which is really interesting because what we've seen from these surveys in the past is that we tend to underestimate the amount of change that technology has on what we do, particularly in the type of field that we're in. And I do think one of the big things that we're going to sort of not see coming is that this technology is going to sort of start providing services and tools that are actually going to sort of really impinge upon what we think is normal human behavior. So a couple of people are thinking their job's going to change tremendously, 76 to 100%. I'm not quite in that space. I think we're going to sort of hold our fort, so to speak, because we are human. So we're probably going to see a far lesser change. But there are going to be significant changes that come away in all of our jobs. So thanks for your comments there as well. Okay, so I want to talk briefly on the concept of superintelligence, and this is a bit of an intro to the next section. So I'll walk through this relatively quickly. But we've heard this concept of superintelligence, and what does it really mean? Let me break it down in a couple of things. First of all, artificial intelligence. We kind of know what that is, don't we? It's this is where we've developed a computer system that can perform tasks that are typically require human intelligence. Now that sounds pretty odd, but this is the basis of why we fear artificial intelligence, because it assumes, or it seems, that it's doing something that requires human intelligence. For example, recognition of speech or problem solving or making a decision. This is what AI is good at, because it can take vast sums of data. It can identify patterns. It can look at relationships, and it can make predictions. And of course, AI comes in different formats as well. You've heard of machine learning, you've heard of deep learning. And by the way, ChatGPT is a deep learning machine, which means that it actually sort of learns as it goes along from its own errors and mistakes, and it learns on new data as well coming in. Okay, so that's the sort of definition of artificial intelligence. If we then look at what it contrasts with respect to humans' intelligence, what we're really seeing is that human intelligence is considered both a product of nature, or in other words, our genetics, and the nurture. In other words, what we experience from environmental factors and experiences. And so you immediately see that this is highly complex, it's highly individualized, it's multidimensional, and it has a wide range of abilities from emotional intelligence through to creative thinking. And that's why, we are going to not see an AI machine that's going to become a human being in the near future. It's certainly going to be able to mimic parts of it, but we have a long way to go before it becomes the equivalent of human intelligence. But it is happening, and this is this concept called superintelligence that's starting to form. But let me just sort of say that it's important that we do keep that differentiation. Artificial intelligence is designed to mimic human intelligence, while human intelligence refers to the innate cognitive abilities of our brain. And that's why, we are not going to see significant changes in AI in the near future until there's some fundamental shift in how that technology is designed. But superintelligence, as I said, is an important concept. It's somewhat theoretical at this stage, but it's essentially why it's creating a fear is because the way that it gets positioned is that it's going to surpass human intelligence in all domains. All those things that I spoke about, logical reason, creativity, emotional thinking, all that stuff. That's what ultimately superintelligence is aiming to do. And that's why it's creating such a fear amongst people. And, what I would say is that there's both positives and negatives to consider with superintelligence. Of course, we shouldn't sort of see it in a negative light, because the pros are, for example, it can solve a lot of advanced things. Think about the advancements in medicine, energy, space exploration. If we didn't have AI tools, we would unlikely to be able to get there, because those complex problems need tools that can actually sort of take vast amount of data, which we would never be able to do in the same time as human. Think about COVID and the ability to build new thinking that underpins all of those things. We need advanced superintelligence to be able to do that. But of course, on the right-hand side is where we are mostly fearful about, things like loss of control, job displacement, which of course there is going to be, and certain industries and certain jobs will be under more impact. There's the ethical concern, that we need superintelligence to really sort of be responsible. And this is back to my point about making sure that we do not enact slave-like behavior in the way that we behave to AI. It'll be unethical, and it's going to be really, it's going to be controversial, but it's going to be really difficult to break down as well. And then, of course, there's the potential to harm. In other words, that there's a risk that this superintelligence overtakes us and actually inadvertently harms us or purposely harms us as human beings. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce superintelligence. I mean, it's a topic on its own, but I wanted to sort of position that because it plays a role moving forward. Okay, this is going to be a really eye-opener area for you, I think. And some of you may have inherently sort of understood this, but I want to talk to you about what I term mathematization of words. Okay, another question coming up. So get your phones ready. And this is going to be a really interesting one. How good are you at mathematics? Don't try and predict why I'm asking this. And I've got from effing terrible on the left-hand side to call me Einstein on the right-hand side. So let's see how we go with this. All right, the pretty goods are leading the case. We've got one Einstein in there, which is great news. And, a lot of people kind of in the middle there. But look, I'm on the left-hand side. I'm somewhere between effing terrible and hopeless. But let me tell you a little story just on this. Back in about 2016 or 17, I was getting sort of into the whole AI thing, and I went and did the Google AI development course, and it ran for about a month. And when I looked at this, it was just mathematics. And for me, it was an absolute eye-opener that all of this AI that we've seen is just mathematics. It's just building maths, and it was really interesting. I couldn't do all the maths. It was far too complex for me, but the principles behind the mathematics was what was important. And Andrew mentioned, this importance of being curious. No matter what role you're in, whether you're in change management, whether you're a physicist, whatever, you have to be inquisitive if you want to survive in our future world. And going out and doing things like a artificial intelligence development course and just drawing on the learnings as opposed to necessarily understanding mathematics will be really important for you to understand going forward. And this is what we mean by mathematization of words. If you don't understand the maths, not the actual maths behind it, it's going to be difficult. So here's the point that I made. Thanks for that. So let's have a look. So most people are kind of sort of middle or pretty good, which is actually really interesting for me because I was expecting a lot more people to be completely horrible at maths, but that's actually a really good message that's coming through there. Okay, let's just have a look at the next slide. So here's a mathematical equation. So my question is to you, would you be able to do this? And probably the answer is, with a little guidance, if you were struggling, you'd probably sort of feel that that was okay. You'd get by. It doesn't look overly complex. It's about putting in values for X and Y, doing a bit of simple mathematics, and you'll identify M. But here's my question. For many people, it's about going through the process of mathematics, and you get to an answer. But understanding what that actually means is a completely different story. And let me show you a different example. Let's have a look at something like this and go, oh my gosh, can I actually do this? And again, you might say, well, maybe I could give it a try. The point that I want to make is that probably very few people actually understand what the actual maths is doing. By the way, a lot of the images that I'm showing you today are actually generated through AI tools. And I don't know if you've noticed, if you look at the fingers, often the AI tools don't get extremities correct. So on this little boy's right hand, he's actually got 6 fingers, if you look carefully on it. So it's one of these strange phenomena that we see. I see somebody's drawing on the screen. That's okay. So what my point is, I want to sort of raise this issue about the mathematization of words, because ChatGPT is actually ChatGPT, sorry, is actually a tool that has mathematized words. Now, back in 1963, there was a guy called George Steiner, and he actually went and sort of understood what mathematics has done to society since the 17th century. And what he found out is that gradually over time, mathematics really captured certain fields and disciplines. So history, economics, philosophy, and even strands of music and art became embroiled in mathematics. And what he really was saying that up until the 17th century, the sphere of language encompassed nearly the whole of experience and reality. Then mathematics came along and it created a new language, non-verbal language, mathematical symbols that not necessarily everybody understood. It created a divide, but that divide only became apparent in many, many years later. So the call out is that whilst we're mathematizing words in tools like ChatGPT, we need to understand that there's actually a layer of unknowing that's happening within that space. And this is something that's going to be important for us to understand. And he made the statement that whatever we do or know or experience can make sense only to the extent that it can be spoken about. That's a very deep statement. And I want to sort of draw your attention to the AI tools that we've got at our disposal, that it is easy to copy and paste. But if you actually can't explain what you're doing, if you can't explain the proverbial maths that sit behind that, then you're really not able to really sort of make sense of it. And this, of course, is going to be the risk that we face with tools like ChatGPT, is that people are going to sort of use it. We are not necessarily sure that it's going to be used in the right way. We're not necessarily sure whether that it's going to really explain the intent behind something. And so our desire or our need is going to be something different, which I'll chat about. But in theory, our world of words has shrunk. And that's something that we've got to deal with. How do we deal with unshrinking the words? And the answer lies in the fact that we've got to understand the mathematics. We've got to really understand how these tools work to allow us to sort of take people through journeys where we can make sure that these technologies are used appropriately. And so this is, I guess, something really sort of fundamental to this talk, is that yes, we're looking at these great tools and they are fantastic to use, and we've got some great things that have come out of them, but there's going to be a lag. And what we need to be aware of is that we're going to get to a point in time in the future where we're not going to understand what we are using the words for. Just like we may not understand why we are doing a mathematical equation, even though we get to an answer. So think about that, because I think this is fundamental to the next section. Okay, so AI in change management. And I'm going to sort of drop down a little bit and sort of talk about some specific things that I think will be relevant to how you operate moving forward. Okay, another quick question. And I'm pretty sure all of you have used ChatGPT, but if you haven't, that's fine. What is the coolest thing that you have done on ChatGPT? And just write in a short sentence there around what it is. Something that you maybe found. I like that one. I'm afraid of touching it. Okay, and isn't that interesting? The first two that have come out are people that are not using it. And what I'm going to encourage those two people who wrote that is to don't be afraid of technology. Go back to my section 1. It's inherently in us as human beings to fear something that looks like that it can become us. So, go out there and explore, because that exploration will be to your best advantage moving forward. Ask about change management. Katy Perry's bio. I've redone my LinkedIn section, not using it, haven't used it, role play. There is 100 things that you can ask this thing to do. And it really is actually quite interesting in terms of what it can do. Revised the job description, built a 7-step recruitment value chain. Isn't that interesting? So, but I am quite interested in the fact that there's a lot of people, wrote a song, refined questions, lots of things. There's a lot of people here who've said they haven't used it. And, that's really of interest for me. And I'm going to sort of try and encourage you to sort of not be afraid and go and use it, because the more you explore, the more you will, it doesn't mean that you're suddenly been overcome by AI or you've been taken over. No, it's about understanding and about realizing the impact of these things. And here's a good reason why. Let's have a look at some of the things that you might do as a change person. Things like data analysis is something that you might do a lot of. You might have to sort of look for trends, look for patterns, analyze things that are related to change management activities. It can help, so you can help your organizations, your client make, data-driven decisions. Those are things that you typically do. Communication is a big part, of course, of any change role in so many different ways. And you can use it to sort of explore ideas, create checklists, generate some ideas, all sorts of things that you could use a tool like ChatGPT to do for you. One thing of interest, and I'll just let you know, is that what we've seen, of course, is a proliferation of tools that have been developed and built on top of ChatGPT. So what's going to happen is ChatGPT will become a tool that will ultimately go into the background. So in the future, when you open Word or PowerPoint or whatever tool, you're going to have the equivalent of ChatGPT in there to help you sort of construct sentences, generate ideas, check the content, etc., etc. But here's one tool, for example. It's called Hummata. And Hummata is a tool that allows you to upload any document in a PDF format and then ask ChatGPT to review it. So, for example, I added in my slide presentation, and I then went and asked ChatGPT, does the presentation make sense? How can I improve it? It starts giving you answers. Are there any spelling mistakes? Are the slides consistent? And so this tool can go in and actually help you with that. Isn't that pretty cool? Right. So again, these tools are going to sort of change the way that we can do things, the change that we can operate. I've used it, for example, in analyzing a job CV that I got, and it actually said to me that it found plagiarism. Now, how it did that, I don't know, and I have to sort of be cognizant of the fact that that might not be true. But it highlighted for me that there were some date inconsistencies. In other words, there was an overlap of jobs, which I just didn't pick up at that point. So these tools are going to be really powerful in terms of doing sort of relatively mundane type of things that'll be important to us. Predictive modeling is important for you as a change person as well, to be able to look at impacts of change on key business metrics, for example. Automation is a big thing, There's a lot of things that we are doing as change people that are really about how do we automate, how do we change things. And so you're using it in that space. And then also decision making. And what I'm trying to say to you is that whilst these might be a set of common things that you do as a change manager, I do have some bad news for you. And that is that when you produce a tool like ChatGPT, there are going to be people out there in the world that are going to think they can do the same as you. And that's a risk. They go, hey, Andrew, that document that you sent me, I ran it through ChatGPT and it says page 1 is crap. It's inconsistent. You're going to get that sort of stuff. And unfortunately, this is about the situation where people don't understand the maths that I spoke about. They're going to find this tool that's going to look useful to them. They're going to go, why do I need Andrew to come in and actually sort of do a change session with me? I'm just going to ask ChatGPT to give me a list of topics and we're going to have a discussion. That is going to happen. And this is why you need to lift yourself up beyond that, because your value add is not going to be in some of the things that you're currently doing anymore. So to those individuals who were not necessarily keen, to sort of engage with these products and go and explore them. The reality is that these AI tools are going to eat away at things that you do. And you're going to have clients that are going to observe that and go, I don't need a physical person to do some of this stuff. I can get AI tools to help me do that. And so your positioning has to change in terms of your role if you want to survive. So change management in itself will not survive, but you need to change the way you operate in order to survive. And here's the key point, that AI is not going to come and take your job, but people who can use AI tools will. And that's the threat that many of us have in all of our jobs, that if we don't keep up, we are not going to be able to sort of do the same role that we thought, because people will see how they can do that. Think about ChatGPT in terms of, you want to sort of build an Excel formula. You don't need somebody to help you with that anymore. You can build a bit of code if you want. Yeah, it's not perfect, and I've tried that, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I always say to people, when you look at new technologies, think what this tool is going to be in 5 years' time. If it's so powerful now and it's created such a wave in society now, this tool is not going away. And we're seeing billions and billions of dollars being thrown into its investment, because for the first time in our lives, we've seen an artificial intelligence tool that actually is going to do something of real value for a lot of people. So think about that. And what's the solution though? And of course, I've got to provide you with the solution in the last few minutes. You've got to become what I'm calling the change mathematician. So it's a play on the change management words and the mathematicians. And I don't mean you need to become a maths get my words right. That's not what I mean at all. It's about understanding the principles around how these technologies work so that you can lift yourself up above that. And funnily enough, I was just chatting with Andrew yesterday. He came up with this word called the recipe. And it is, your job is to be the recipe between words and human actions. And you need to probably let that sink in a little bit, but it's the recipe between words and human action. Words are what we use to sort of describe what we do, how we do it. And if we lose our ability to understand words and know what words are, then we're going to lose the ability to create proper human action. And that's the risk in this particular case. So becoming that link between words and human action is important, because that's where you'll bring the human behavior, the creativity, the emotional intelligence, common sense that we spoke about, the physical presence, the adaptability. That's where your real value is going to lie. And it really is making sure that you understand these tools at a deeper level. And if you don't understand them, you're going to struggle yourself to understand how to use them like everybody else has used them, but in a way that's going to be beneficial. Okay. So let me end off with 2 slides. And what I would say is that in the traditional sense, we've often operated in these bubbles. So we go and we deal with people, we deal with technology, we deal with the environment. And I don't mean environment as in climate change environment as in the place that we work. So it could be a home environment, it could be an office, it could be a virtual environment. So often we've tended to operate in these bubbles. You go in as a change person, you might have to sort of deal with people, and you might have to deal with, implementation of a piece of technology. But the real world, and the world that AI is going to sort of really fast track for us, is that the relationship between these 3 bubbles is not only become more apparent, it's going to become bi-directional. And the real impact of change is not going to happen in the circle itself. It's going to happen at that intersect between the circles. So what is that relationship between people and technology? How do people influence technology, and how does technology influence people? And likewise, the technologies that you choose, how does that influence the environment that people operate in? And how does that environment that I operate in, if I'm in a virtual environment, how does that impact the way that I use technology? And likewise, the third leg between people and environment. So if we look at at a very high level, on the people side, we've got emotions, we've got creativity, we've got innovation that happens in that people side. Technology is all about speed. It's about the patterns that it can create. It's about the analysis that it can do. And environment is really the behavior, the outcome of behavior that we see. This is where we set rules in terms of how we operate, and it's how we enact ourselves with respect to the work that we do. Now, the relationship between those things are fundamentally your value that you add as a change person. The interaction between those things and understanding them is going to be so important. And if I take a concept such as choice, and I say, let's look at choice from a change perspective. If somebody chooses to use ChatGPT, you can't go and say, no, you can't use it, it's not going to work. It doesn't work like that. You know, you cannot slow down or stop that technology. You may do that for a time, but it's going to. But if somebody chooses to use that technology, here's your question as a change person. What is the impact that that has on people that you're dealing with from a change perspective? And how do people respond to that technology in a bi-directional influence? And they do. So the technology is going to influence people, and the people are going to influence how that technology gets used. So that's my challenge to you. I want you to sort of step back from your role as a change person and say, don't just operate in the circle. You've got to operate at the intersect, because that's where the value is going to be. You have to know the technology. You have to understand the technology, i.e. the mathematics that sit behind it, because otherwise you're going to lose the connection between the words and your ability to enact human behavior. So that's going to be really important. And this is a topic on its own as well. So I'm just kind of introducing you to the thinking. And lastly, and this is my last slide, is that I want to encourage you to sort of develop what I call digital muscle. Now, digital muscle may seem kind of technology bending, and it is, but it's fundamentally a preparation for yourself for an unknown future. And a lot of that is inquisitiveness. Go out and be inquisitive about all technologies coming down the track, because if you don't, somebody else is going to use them, and they're going to use them in a way that you don't understand, which disempowers you. But I want you to think of digital muscle beyond just the technology tools. Fundamentally, it's a mental thing that you need to do as well. So think about going to a gym. You know, you go to a gym, you're building muscles, you're building general strength, but you're also doing something else. Generally, you're becoming healthier, you're becoming fitter, you're becoming mentally healthier as well, and mentally resilient when you go into a gym regularly. And this is the same with digital muscle. You need to go into the digital gym and continually improve and understand. You may not necessarily have anything specific in mind, but when your body needs to react, when your mind needs to react, and you need to become intuitive around how to use a tool, you'll be well positioned to do that. People whose jobs are changing, who have not been going to the digital gym, are the ones that are going to suffer the most, because they don't understand how to get out, and they will become the Luddites. They will be the group of people that will say, I don't want to change, because there's a fear behind it that they can't. The people who are exploratory, the people that are inquisitive, are the ones that will survive, because they will be able to sort of understand that when something comes down the track that was unknown, they can absorb it. Intuitively, they'll understand the mathematics. Intuitively, they'll understand what opportunities it can bring. And so my call out to you is go to the digital gym. Make sure that you build as much digital muscle as possible. And that means you need to explore. You need to be inquisitive. You need to go trial things out, use them in as many different ways you can. That's your survival mechanism as a human. AI technology is coming, and it's going to get much stronger as we go along. Your role is not to try and beat it. Your role is to try and stay ahead of it in a particular way of being able to use those technologies to your advantage. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much. I know there was many other questions that I may have just touched on very briefly, and I couldn't include them all. We could talk for another couple of hours, but thank you so much for the opportunity to sort of share some of my thinking with you. I hope it's been useful, and as I said, please reach out if you have any questions.
Amazing, Rob. Well, round of applause for Rob. Thank you so much. Do me a favor, jump in the chat, tell me what your best part was, and please don't leave. We've got one more announcement to make, a bit of a giveaway, but jump in the chat now. What was your big aha moment? What did you love about this session on Rob? It's a great session. Thank you. Fantastic. Thanks, Rob. What was your best part? Inspiring, great topic. Humata. I'm onto Humata. Thanks for that, Rob. I agree. Mathematized words. I think that's going to stay with so many people. Wonderful. Great session. Change repetition. Thanks, Jackie. It validated a lot of thinking here. The last slide on digital muscle. I think we need to talk more about that as well. Awesome. Keep them coming in there. I'm going to just switch to share my screen now. And while you're doing that, it's our giveaway time. So we love our community, you love us, and we are keen to give away not one, but 2 seats to our upcoming course. So if you are keen to get away from baking and start making recipes with clients using technology like ChatGPT, using design thinking and being that collaborator in change and facilitator, come join us. All you have to do, scan in, enter your details, and someone from our team will reach out, have a bit of a chat. We've got a question around AI as well. And that will be coming up for our March course releases. They're our flagship programs, each valued over $3,000. So there'll be 2 of us joining. I think we've had one of the competition winners there as well. So yeah, we will send you an email in that, but would love to have you on board. And again, that's our love to you from continuing to support us for not 1, but 2 years of Space for Change events. Also, get on our mailing list. I think Hugo's got the competition link there. And just Google Space for Change. You'll see the little TM or trademark sign next to it. Jump in there where we continue to share and ideate and co-create these sessions. So Rob, we're going to send you a bottle of something naughty as a thanks for the team, but please connect with Rob. He's one of those great people on LinkedIn to follow, but also a great person to have a coffee with if you have that opportunity. So from the bottom of my heart at Space for Change, thanks for joining. On behalf of Christina, Anna, and myself, have an interstellar day and go forth and prosper.